Good evening and welcome to another edition of Special Assignment. I'm your host, Ashraf Garda. In the last year, there has been an alarming spike in the number of South Africans arrested for drug trafficking abroad. Many say they were coerced or forced to commit these crimes by transnational syndicates working with South Africans. And while they languish for decades in prisons, the recruiters in South Africa are getting off scot-free. Hazel Friedman gives us the inside story in this, the first of a two-part investigation.
Eat business, it's business, eat, mama, eat.
They have no idea they've been set up.
Anything happens, I'll go to her house. She doesn't know I stay, but I have to know where she stays.
They'll threaten you that you're taking your passport and you don't even have money with you. You thought you're just going to this fairy tale life.
They are promised a fully paid for dream vacation or a job overseas. All they have to do is deliver a parcel. But the trip of a lifetime becomes a life sentence because they are recruited or coerced for one purpose alone: to be arrested. They are the sacrificial lambs, decoys, or in the brutal animal speak of the narcotics trade, dead cows for piranhas. They are the bait thrown to the customs officials, while the professional mules, carrying much larger quantities, slip through undetected. Reaching adulthood in the seaside hamlet of George in the Southern Cape should be a carefree existence for any young man. But not for Johan Gerber. In 2005, at the age of 19, he was arrested in Mauritius for heroin trafficking. He is currently serving an 11-year sentence there. His mother, Patricia, describes her anguish after visiting him in prison.
As the days draw closer to coming home, I can see in my son also, he becomes quieter, knowing that I'm going home. But the worst is to get on that plane. You cry all the way home because I feel that a part of me is left behind.
There are more than 1,000 South Africans incarcerated abroad for drug trafficking, many of them women. South Africa is one of 3 countries worldwide, Ghana and Nepal are the other 2, that will not enter into a prisoner transfer treaty that would allow their citizens to serve a portion of their sentence at home, close to their families. Since her son's arrest in 2005, Pat has become a crusader, not only for her son, but for all South Africans locked up abroad. She has been lobbying for a prisoner transfer treaty to bring them home. And through her website, Locked Up in a Foreign Country, she has observed a shocking spike in the number of South Africans arrested as decoys.
It is actually out of control. In the past year, we've had 29 that we know of that were arrested. Many in Indonesia, just less than 2 weeks ago in Mauritius, Brazil, Venezuela, Hong Kong.
If you are arrested in country X, then you serve your sentence in country X. But they are even at multilateral body levels at the UN to say, the issue of prisoner transfer agreements has some value, amongst them humanitarian reasons.
The reason why South Africa is targeted is because there is no investigations done in South Africa. They're not doing anything to stop it. And they know that while these people are held in foreign prisons, that the recruiter, the drug lords are safe, because for every South African that's in a foreign prison, there is a recruiter and a drug lord walking free in this country.
But one recruiter did not get off scot-free. Cheryl Kwele, the former wife of State Security Minister Siyabonga Kwele, and her Nigerian accomplice Frank Nabulisa were convicted and sentenced in May 2011 to a 12-year jail term for drug trafficking. The appeal court increased both to 20 years. But Kwele would have got away with it were it not for the evidence provided by Tessa Beertger, the young woman who was recruited by Kwele with promises of a job, only to be arrested as a decoy in Brazil.
My message to the other people out there in South Africa is be aware of the signs. Don't be blinded like I was. If it is too good to be true. It's going to get you into trouble.
But police say they have made huge strides in the war on drugs.
South African Police Service has adopted an intelligence-led policing system as the most effective and practical way of dealing with the high-level drug trafficking organizers. If we look at just our border posts, and in the last 2 years alone, we have arrested over 1,068, or we have arrested 1,068 drug suspects, seizing drugs to the tune of over 500 million rand, and this is just at the border post.
The United Nations said in the World Report in 2010, South Africa has become the largest import and export of drugs.
And most of the South Africans arrested overseas are small fry. Many are the syndicate decoys or dead cows.
All the small amounts are the ones that's going to be arrested, because the mules are, like I said, it's their job. They've been doing it for years. The decoy is the first time offender.
Coming up, Wanted, a white South African girl to travel to Brazil. We expose a syndicate recruiter.
In the morning, when about 6 o'clock, they woke me up, gave me a bowl full of all the bananas that I had to swallow. And then I swallowed them for like an hour. I kept on swallowing. When I got tired, they didn't want to give me a break. They said, no, you have to swallow all of them. During the flight, I had a couple of cramps in my stomach because I didn't know if I'm supposed to eat or not, because it was the first time really swallowing all of those 120 pieces.
The role of a professional mule to smuggle drugs by swallowing them or carrying them in their luggage.
Being that South African girl traveling to another foreign country, the Nigerian guys that you'll be traveling for will accompany you to the airport, and from the airport they see you, bye. And once you get overseas, you'll meet other Nigerian guys. They work with the guys in South Africa, they're brothers, they're friends, they know each other. Then those Nigerian guys, they'll accompany you after swallowing or after carrying the things. They'll accompany you to the airport, back to these Nigerian guys in South Africa.
Once they have reached their destination with their illicit cargo, the mules SMS their syndicate contacts, who collect them at the airport or another port of entry. They are then taken to a hotel where they will be given laxatives to expel the drugs from their system.
We stayed there for 3 days. They gave me a lot of food and a lot of pills, like pills to make my stomach running so that I can take all the things out. Then for the entire 3 days I've been just eating, taking pills to take all the things out because they needed everything to be out. Then I gave them the things, that's when they gave me my money. I got paid 30,000 for the trip.
This specific drug mule grew up in a place like this. She wanted a better life and would do anything to acquire it.
I dreamed of being an entrepreneur, being rich, living in one of those top-billing houses, having that supercar and a motorbike, a super motorbike, yeah. You meet one person, the other person will introduce you to another person. And then at the end of the day, you end up knowing a lot of people who would introduce you to other people, and then one of them would want you to travel for them. So that's how it came about me traveling.
In this world, the word drugs is hardly used. It is about traveling or taking a trip. And this mule has never even used drugs.
I've had drugs in my stomach, but I've never tasted them. But I've had enough to last me years in my stomach.
Then there are the shopping sprees.
Once you get there, you tell them you're here for shopping. And then you'll be shopping a lot of shoes, like wedges. There'll be a lot of wedges, shoes. Inside those wedges, there's drugs.
Or a corrupt official at the airport who will make sure your baggage passes through undetected. But the true test of professionalism in the sordid world of recruiters, mules, and dead cows is how many bananas, bolitas, or pellets you can swallow. And if you can't swallow, or if you change your mind,
Once you get there, they threaten you and you think I'm in a foreign country, I don't know anyone, they'll take my passport from me.
And the decoys?
The other trip that I did was a trip that I went with a friend, but then the friend didn't know that she thought that we're going there for a job. It's easy for them to arrest you. So that's why most girls are not really being told that you're gonna go there for drugs and all that. They just tell them it's a job.
We hear that a drug syndicate is looking for a white woman to travel to Brazil or the United Kingdom. Through our underworld contacts, we get in touch with another mule who does not know we are from special assignment. An undercover agent befriends the mule and asks to be introduced to a recruiter belonging to a transnational syndicate looking for a white girl to travel. They meet on the night of the 27th of January. The recruiter is in a hurry because she has to accompany another mule to the airport who is flying to Geneva that night.
So how can I trust you? Sure. Just give me three reasons why I should trust you.
The recruiter requests a passport from the undercover agent and warns her of the consequences should she back out.
My people are very strict. I don't want somebody who's going to cross my mind. I just beat up somebody 2 weeks ago. If Paul was around, he was going to take. There was a scandal which happened. Somebody tried to run away with the market. And they beat her almost to death. They've been looking for a white girl tonight because they want somebody to go to the UK.
The operative says she will get her passport over the weekend, knowing that once she hands it over, it will be tickets for her.
Let's meet tomorrow. Anything happens, I'll go to her house. She doesn't know I stay, but I have to know where she stays.
Well, we might not know where she stays, but we soon find out who she is and where she works. She is 28-year-old Frida Tembo from Lusaka, Zambia. And she's a sales executive at a prestigious company in Hyde Park, Johannesburg. We call her to offer her the right to reply. We were wondering why you needed to supplement your income by recruiting drug mules.
Are you pranking me or what?
No, we're not pranking you. This is very serious. Did you ever take a young woman, accompany her to the airport to put her on a flight to Geneva?
Never. I've never ever done that. Never. I fought my own to doing that.
Did you ever try and recruit white women to go either to Brazil or to the United Kingdom?
Never. I would never ever do that.
Are you freed from Zambia?
Yes.
And you're 28 years old?
Oh my God.
We invite her to examine our footage. She initially agrees, but an hour later declines. The following day, she removes her profile of Facebook. Fortunately, the previous day, we had obtained this photograph of her on the social network.
Will South Africa put together a prisoner transfer treaty to bring its citizens home? We'll get answers after this.
What kept me going is that the fact that I had to look forward, that I had a child, I had a daughter that's waiting for me, that I have to fight for her sake to survive this situation.
In October 2010, Vanessa Goosen, a former Miss South Africa finalist, received a royal pardon from the King of Thailand. She had been in prison since 1994 for heroin smuggling. Although she pleaded guilty, she has maintained her innocence throughout.
For a person who doesn't even smoke, to end up in prison and heroin that was unknown to me, we knew about cocaine. It's always on TV, but I've never heard of heroin. So being in prison for heroin, and I'm pregnant and in a foreign country, so far away, that took a toll on my family.
Innocent or guilty, many will agree that her punishment far outweighed her crime. Like fellow South African Dawn van Niekerk, she gave birth in prison, only to have her child removed from her at the age of 3. A week before her release, her best friend Melanie Holmes, who had adopted her daughter, died of a heart attack. Vanessa would have to be a mother to her friend's 2 children and her own biological child, a daughter she barely knew.
And it was overwhelming for me because I was put in a family with 3 children immediately, And I had to deal with myself, and I had to learn. Haven't cooked for 16 and a half years. I had to learn how to start putting food together and start taking control of a household. And it was much for me. I was overwhelmed by that. I would go into my room, close the door, and I'll just start crying. I break down completely.
They've had no rehabilitation. They don't know what it is to be reintegrated back into society. They don't know their families.
2.5 years later, we visit her. The wounds are slowly starting to heal.
I actually got a little bit impatient with myself because I felt I'm wasting time where I actually should be moving forward. But I actually realized this is part of my healing. You know, I expected that I would come out, I'm fine, everything. But actually, I have been affected by staying in prison for 16 and a half years.
And after her arrest, an increasing number of naive, desperate or greedy South Africans became entangled in the lethal web of drug trafficking.
In that exact period, we had a whole, almost weekly news of arrests of South Africans for drug-related offences. It was a big shock to us.
Roel Goris was South Africa's first ambassador to Thailand. He was deployed to cement trade and diplomatic ties with the monarchy. He was completely unprepared for the arrest of 7 South African citizens in 1994.
We had to respect the judicial system of Thailand. We could not interfere in that. Even if we had pressure from the families, we could not do that. But we could at least make their circumstances in prison bearable.
What you do come away with is that these people had been duped into doing whatever they were doing. Whether they knew what they were carrying, I don't know, and it's not for me to say. But they were in a situation in their own lives where they needed whatever, you know, a situation or help, and it was offered by a well-meaning person. And it turned out to be something totally different.
It was then that Goris began drafting a prisoner transfer treaty. Thailand was very supportive. So was South Africa. Initially, anyway.
This was now with a new changeover. And I expected almost a more human approach. You know, seeing the old times were seen as being more inhuman, and now we have a new government and new tolerance, and you know what I want to say. And I was blown off the stage, basically. It was very badly received. It was received as the general reaction was, you're wasting your time, these people should rot in jail. No sympathy. And I explained, and that was the whole motivation for it, the families.
But in the late 1990s, another treaty with Thailand was on the table. It had been drafted by Robert McBride, who was then Foreign Affairs Director, and he was in charge of the Directorate for Southeast Asia.
We were very excited. It means like only 4 years that we won't be able to be free. But just the fact that you'll be able to be closer to your family, you'll see your children, you'll see your family, that is comforting. But to be abroad so far.
But it was rejected by the then Director General of Foreign Affairs, convicted ex-cop Jackie Selebi.
Very happy.
When we got the news that the prisoner transfer treaty has been stopped, that really destroyed us. You know, I lost hope.
We're already in the process of negotiating with India and Brazil, but then Mr. Selebi stopped all further negotiations.
And as this confidential document confirms, in 1999 there were indeed talks with India and Brazil.
I think it's also easier to keep our South Africans that are in jail out of South Africa. We don't want that information coming back to South Africa. We don't want the information on possibly who's involved with drugs and that. I think it's going to point very big fingers to lots of politicians, to people that are holding rank in public office, to police officers, and so forth.
But according to the Department of Correctional Services, talks around a transfer treaty with SADC countries are in an advanced stage.
When the minister made that announcement, it is correct. Maybe one can say, when you are running
a steeplechase of 3,000 meters and you are on the 2,000 mark, it is an advanced stage. But again, I want to highlight, it's not an overnight thing.
It might not be an overnight process, but as this 2003 communiqué confirms, it has taken a decade just to reach this point. And there must still be consensus between Department of International Relations, SAPS, Home Affairs and Correctional Services, as well as the countries involved. And the legislation must be changed to reflect the shift in policy.
Then it will go to Cabinet, and then if Cabinet approves the principle to amend the legislation, the process will then go to Parliament, and then the parliamentary processes, which might be common cause, but again, you know, we need to respect also their processes, including the consultation phases, and at the end of the day, approval, and then it must be enacted.
When I look at the Nigerians, for example, they did not have an embassy. And it was very difficult for them being in the prison. But when their president got an ambassador over to Thailand, I mean, it took only 2 years for them to establish an embassy and to get their treaty signed for them to get back to Nigeria.
Depends on how competent the staff are of these departments, but between Mauritius and the UK it took 6 months, but with India it was 2 years.
An agreement will not include all crimes. I will not say it will exclude drugs, but it will depend also in terms of the agreement with the specific country.
But from a pragmatic perspective, a prisoner transfer treaty would seem the way forward. There are 8,054 foreigners from more than 80 countries in our prisons. Each costs the South African taxpayer 264 Rand a day, 8,000 Rand a month, and 96,000 Rand a year.
To have a prisoner transfer agreement will be in the best interest of all parties concerned.
I kind of get the sadness and I feel guilty because I'm free. And I think of the girls.
We as families feel that we are absolutely incarcerated with them because of not being able to visit them, see them, communicate with them, and your relationship, many of these people, the relationships with their families is actually broken down. That's all I want. My son to be home. I will never, as long as I'm alive, will I give up on any of those South Africans till they are returned to their own country because their families are suffering.
Now, I'd like your opinion on the findings of tonight's show. If you're tweeting, use the hashtag Special Assignment. Post comments on the official Special Assignment Facebook page or email us. And I'll be taking the discussion further on my radio show. That's SAFM, Friday, 2:30 p.m. Finally, I've picked out 2 viewer comments from last week's show that highlighted the abuse and even murder of sex workers in South Africa. Sandra Besson Facebooked saying, having brothels is the way to go because it gets the girls off the streets and into safe environments. While Marion Stevens tweeted, sex workers need an exit from poverty and do not deserve cop-sponsored abuse. Well, that's it for tonight. Join us again next week when we point out the issues that matter.